In the name of the Father, and the Son, and the Holy Spirit, one God, amen. Today we read the passage in the Gospels where Christ is sending out the 70 apostles ahead of him in every city that he was about to visit. He sent these apostles there to prepare the way for him and to preach to the people so that when Christ himself would come, they would be ready, and having heard a message about Christ and his coming, that they would then be more receptive to Christ. And we read several things in this passage related to spiritual warfare. In Luke 10, verse 17, it says, "Then the 70 returned with joy, saying, 'Lord, even the demons are subject to us in your name.'" They were joyful because when they went from place to place, they realized that God had given them the ability to cast out demons. And also, when they returned, Christ says that he saw Satan falling from heaven after that they went and they preached, and then people began to believe that this is something that caused pain to the devil. This is something that caused torment to him, that he was falling from where he was down to the earth. That he was something that we could see kind of in the spiritual realm what exactly was happening. Also, he tells them that I give you the authority to trample on serpents and scorpions and upon all the power of the enemy. So there is something that is very much tied to the idea of preaching to those who are lost, about the idea of there's something spiritual happening. There's some spiritual warfare that's going on. There's some hidden reality that maybe we are not directly aware of or see, but there is something definitely that happens. And many people ask the question of what exactly happens when we preach to people. What about people that are already good people? What about people that already do good works? Well, actually, the people that the apostles preached to, they were not all evil people. They were not all wicked people. They were not all people that did nothing but sin all the time. I'm sure that many of them were good people. And yet, see the effect of their faith when they began to believe in Christ in the spiritual reality, what happened. Demons began to be cast out. The devil falls from heaven. All these things that Christ spoke to them about as a result of the ministry of the apostles. Also for us, in Romans 16:20, it says, "And the God of peace will crush Satan under your feet shortly." This idea of spiritual warfare and fighting against the devil is something that only begins in our baptism. It only begins when we begin to walk in the spiritual life. It only begins at the beginning. But what about our continued fight? What about our continued spiritual warfare, the battle that we fight against the devil, not just from the beginning, but all throughout our lives? This is something that is very important because the devil never ceases to work. He doesn't just attack us from the beginning on the first day and then after that he leaves us. He continues to attack us vigilantly all throughout our life, and so we have to also be vigilant. We also have to respond and attack him and to defend ourselves from his attacks and to flee from him whenever it's appropriate. So it's very important for us to understand and realize that we are in a war. We struggle in this spiritual struggle against an enemy who is real, not just a fabricated one. When we speak about the devil, we're not speaking about a spirit of evil in general. We're not speaking about just kind of something that is against us in this vague and kind of abstract sense. We're speaking about a being, a very specific being that God originally created to be an angel of light that fell from heaven, and that now he is seeking to destroy God by seeking to destroy us. In Ephesians 6:12, it says, "For we do not wrestle against flesh and blood, but against principalities, against powers, against the rulers of the darkness of this age, against spiritual hosts of wickedness in the heavenly places." So it makes it clear that what is our main focus should be. It's that we're fighting not against flesh and blood. Unfortunately, we imagine ourselves most of the time to be fighting against flesh and blood. When we think about who are our enemies, oftentimes we think of other human beings. We think of people that bother us, that are, don't treat us in the right way or have hurt us in some way or the other. We don't necessarily think about the devil because he's invisible. We can't see him. But here St. Paul is reminding us that our enemies are not flesh and blood. We don't fight against flesh and blood. We fight against the devil. We fight against these spiritual hosts of wickedness. And so a very powerful enemy is one who is invisible, one who is not clearly apparent, one who does not make himself known, but he works behind the scenes and attacks us while our guard is down. And this is important for him because when our guard is down, obviously we're much more vulnerable. What kind of attitude do we have in our life? Do we go through life with a sense of alertness and watchfulness, always guarding ourselves against the enemy? Or do we go through life kind of just everything goes, and there's nothing really that I need to do to discipline myself or to guard myself, to guard my senses in any way? You can think about someone who is at the beach. Someone's at the beach is just relaxing. His guard is not up. He's not expecting to be attacked. Whereas someone who is under attack is going to have a very different mindset. We're going to be always thinking how to protect ourselves. Do we see ourselves that we are in a spiritual warfare, or do we see ourselves like we are on the beach? Demons are very powerful. Okay, demons are very powerful. There's one thing that we should remember, that these are not beings to be trifled with, and that they are much stronger than us. The only way that we even have any ability to fight against them is not because we have any strength or ingenuity or cleverness in of ourselves, but it is because Christ has given to us this ability. When he says, I give you the authority to tread on serpents and scorpions and upon all the power of the enemy, this is an authority that God gives to us through the Spirit. It's not something that we have inherently. It's not something that because we are clever or we are strong that we're able to fight against these beings. They're far, far stronger. If there are other human beings that are stronger than us and can overpower us, imagine how much more the demons that can overpower us and destroy us. However, God says that he always gives us a means of escape. Okay, there's always a means of escape. He says that there is no temptation that will overcome us, overwhelm us, because God always provides a means for escape. And maybe in our lives we can think of temptations that we felt like there was no escape, or that the temptation was way too strong for us and we don't know how to fight against it and it overcomes us and we don't know what to do. But actually, if we believe the words of God, of what he said, that there is always an escape, that means that we are not doing what it is we should do to find the means of escape or to prepare ourselves for the day of temptation. What is the escape? The escape could be in the sense that I have not trained myself enough so that when the temptation comes, I'm able to flee from it, I'm able to escape from it, I'm able to stand up against it and not fall into it. How is it that I'm acting all throughout before the war comes upon me? It's like soldiers that are training for a war. Actually, our armies, most of the soldiers in our army are not actively in battle at any given time. Most of them go years or decades without even going to war. But what do they spend their time doing? They don't just say, well, we're not in a war, so we're just going to relax and have fun. They are training constantly, training for every possible scenario of everything that could ever happen, so that when it does happen, and if it happens, they're prepared, and that there's nothing that they have not trained for. This is a way for them to be always prepared for this war, this battle, because they identify that there's a real enemy, and they seek to defend themselves and to destroy this enemy when the time comes. So we have to ask ourselves, are we always training so that when the temptation comes, we will have the means of escape? The means of escape requires us to do our part, that there is something for us to do. We are not simply to sit around doing nothing and being very lax in our spiritual discipline, being very lax in our prayers, being very lax in everything, and then expect that when temptation comes, that we're going to be able to overcome it, because there is no means by which we would overcome. This is assuming that we are inherently able to overcome. But what is it that God has said? Our ability to overcome the devil comes through our relationship with him, comes through our connection with God himself. So if we are not connected to God, then how is it that we will overcome the evil one? One way to help ourselves in this spiritual warfare and to reduce the temptations that we experience is the idea of detachment, is that we are detached from the world, that we seek to be detached. We spend our lives, especially as children, learning how to live in the world. We learn how to live in the world. We learn how to deal with one another. We learn how to communicate. We learn education of how to work and how to understand different concepts. And everything that we learn in school is all about how to live in the world. But what it does not teach us is how to die to the world. How is it that we die to the world? We are always in a process of death. I mean, sad to say, without really thinking about it, but we are always in the process of death. From the moment that we are born, we begin to die because our days are numbered. And this life is not the life that God intended. This is a life that is different from what God intended. God did not intend us to die. He did not intend for us to have a day of death. He did not intend for us to experience pain. He did not intend for us to get older and to get weaker and to begin to lose our intelligence, our faculties, our strength, and to eventually reach the point where our body decays and dies. But this is the reality. So why is it that we are not being taught how to prepare for this day? That we are not being taught how to prepare for it? Again, we learn how to live in the world, but we don't learn how to die to the world. How am I detached from the world? How do I teach myself to remember always that my joy should not come simply from the things in the world, but from the things beyond this world? And that the more that I'm attached to and love the things of the world, the harder it is for me to escape temptation. Because often temptation comes through the things that are in the world. Christ said, "If anyone comes to me and does not hate his father and mother, wife and children, brothers and sisters, yes, and his own life also, he cannot be my disciple." And this type of hatred is not like hatred that we typically use the word hatred. But it means that, do I love anything more than I love God, even if it is my own family? Am I detached in the sense that if I lose everything around me, do I still feel content that God is with me? Or do I actually lose myself if I lose everything that I have? We see examples of this physically, where monks, for instance, people who want to become monks, they physically give up everything. They give up their physical possessions. They take a vow of poverty. They also take a vow of obedience. Not only do they give up their physical possessions, they also give up their will, that they no longer direct their lives. They no longer direct themselves where it is that they should go or what is it they should do, but somebody else directs it for them. They also have a vow of celibacy. They don't give their body any type of pleasure. And so this complete detachment, of course, is an extreme form of detachment. This is someone who is going to the extreme. But what about us? What about those who are not monks? How is it that we live a life of detachment here in the world? How is it that we control our senses? How is it that we limit what it is that we do? Why? Not because for any other reason other than these things are sources of temptation, that these are the means by which the devil attacks us. And if we are training ourselves, then we train ourselves to fight. This is one of the reasons that we fast. We fast to train our bodies, to train our appetites, to train ourselves to not give our flesh what it is that it wants. Also, in the spiritual warfare, we should be aware of the small demons, of the small temptations, of the little things that eventually grow and become bigger and bigger without us realizing it. If we are tempted, for instance, to murder someone, this is consider it to be like a big sin. Maybe our conscience would prick us and say, no, this is wrong. I'm not even going to consider this. Even if I'm angry towards someone, I'm not going to think to actually do this. But there are very small sins that we are easily fall into. It's easy for us to get trapped in and ensnared in, and these can be equally destructive to us. Okay? We usually focus on the major ones. Okay? But what about these small ones? One of them is like the demon of procrastination, where I think of all the good things that I know I should be doing, and I agree that these are good, but I always say that I'm going to start it tomorrow. I'm never going to do it today. I'm going to say that fasting is good, and prayer is good, and tithing is good, and attending the church is good, and forgiving my, people that have hurt me is good. All these things are good, but I'm going to start it tomorrow. Because right now I'm busy with my studying, I'm busy with my relationships, I'm busy with my work, I'm busy with this and this. And so once things calm down and when things get easier, then for sure I'm going to be committed and dedicated. I'm going to go do all the things that I know that I should be doing. But unfortunately, tomorrow never comes, because every day comes with it its own busyness, comes with it its own situation that is always tugging at my time, tugging at my attention. And unless I force myself to do what is right, even in the midst of all those things, then maybe I will never get to that point. I will never get to that point. This can be very dangerous, because we all think of ourselves, if you can imagine, maybe sometimes we make like a resolution to do something, and we keep putting it off, and without realizing it, a whole year has passed. We realize, you know what, a year ago I said I was going to do something and I still haven't done it. It's very difficult. Another kind of temptation that we experience is to trivialize sin. We say, what harm will it do if I do certain things? If I go to a certain movie, or gambling, or having a drink, or going to a nightclub, or having innocent relationships according to our understanding with the opposite sex. If I toy with sin in a way that I always feel like I'm somehow in control, but very gradually I lose control. Very gradually I become addicted to something that I thought I could handle and control, and now I'm unable to get out of this situation. These are small sins, things that happen gradually, slowly, without really throwing up any alarms, because I'm not jumping into a big sin all at once. And this is a very crafty thing that the devil does. When we speak about spiritual warfare, then, it's very important that we identify these things and that we defend and protect ourselves from these small demons and these small temptations. Also, in the midst of temptation and spiritual warfare, we have to ask God for help. We have to ask him for help. We have to identify that we, without God, cannot do anything. If we read about how dangerous the devil is in 1 Peter 5:8, it says, "Be sober, be vigilant, because your adversary, the devil, walks about like a roaring lion, seeking whom he may devour." If we ever go to the zoo and actually go and see the lions, none of us would ever dare to actually go into the lion's den alone. That we're going to actually go in there. I mean, maybe there's this really thick glass that protects us from the lions and we feel comfortable just standing outside and looking at the lion. But how many would dare to go inside and to think that they're going to be able to survive, to think that they're going to be safe to be there with a lion? We identify that the lion is dangerous and we don't want to approach him. We don't want to get near him. But when we toy with sin, then this is what we're doing. And if we are being attacked by a lion, how is it that we would overcome? We can't do it by ourselves. We have to ask God for help. Our fight, and this is an important thing, our fight is not with the demons. Because if we stand up against a demon just like we stand up against a lion, there is no way we can ever win. We're not fighting the demons. We're not fighting the devil. Our fight is to bring God into our life, into the war to help us. This is the fight that we fight. The spiritual fight that we fight is a fight against ourselves. It's a fight against our own inclinations. It's a fight against our own corrupted nature. It's a fight against our own wrong desires. This is the fight that we fight. And it's a fight to stand before God, to overcome all of these things, to bring God into our life more and more. So that once God is in our life, then when it comes time for any kind of battle, he will fight the battle for us. And we don't have to struggle against someone, the devil, who is beyond our ability to fight. There's no way we can overcome him. So this is the fight. The fight is daily. This is why it is a proactive thing. I don't just wait for temptation or for trial to happen to me and now I'm going to call out to God and ask for help. No, I ask and call out for God every day, even when there's no trial, even when there's no temptation, even when there's nothing, because I want to draw closer to him for the sake of being close to him. And so my trial every day, that I force myself to pray, I force myself to read, I force myself, even though I'm tired and exhausted, to do the things that I should do, this is the fight that we fight. It's not that I fight directly the devil because he is too strong for us. Also, we are called to resist with faith and never lose hope. 1 Peter 5:9 says, "Resist him, steadfast in the faith." Whenever we begin to stand against the devil and we resist him, we will inevitably fail many times. This is why it's important for us not to lose hope and to realize that through our trying and failing, we're actually growing stronger. And through our trying and failing, we're actually learning something about the devil and about ourselves and about how to fight and about how to call on God. All these things are in trial. Again, like training, when we speak about the army soldiers training, their training is not just taking tests and reading books. Like those things are important to understand, like the theory of things, but how do we put that theory into practice? The tests that we have are real, which is why in the army they actually have real training, like they have simulated war in order for them to learn what it's actually like to be in war and to fight. It's the same with us, is we actually have to be in the midst of temptation, in the midst of trial, in the midst of these things for us to grow in our understanding, to grow in our ability to call upon God, to grow in our realization of how much we need God. All these things happen. And so in this process, we will inevitably at times fall. And so if we give up when we begin to fall in any kind of sin, no matter how long we've been falling into the sin, then the devil has won. The devil has won. He's beaten us because we have given up. But if to the very last breath, to the end of our lives, even if we continue to struggle with the same sins again and again, but we sincerely fight against them, then we have won because we have not let him devour us. We have not let him fight us. Every time we get knocked down by the lion, we get up again. Every time. Every time he fights us and he pushes us down, we stand up again. And we remain standing to the very end. It doesn't matter how many times we've fallen. All that matters is how many times we have gotten up. So in conclusion, here when Christ sent out the 70 apostles to go and preach to the people, we saw how much this involved a kind of a spiritual warfare. That it wasn't just a casual preaching. It wasn't just, hey, come and follow Christ. There was an invisible war that was going on in this time, which is why the devil stands up against evangelism. This is why he stands up against those of us who want to share our faith with other people, because he hates it, because this is what it does to him. And maybe we don't identify this or see this, and we think it to be a very casual and light thing that we do, but behind the scenes, this is what is actually happening. And so our spiritual fight from the beginning of our spiritual life, and when we share our faith with other people, is very important. We have to realize that we are in a war. We also have to realize that the demons are very powerful, beyond our ability to fight them. We can't fight them. All we can do is bring God into the fight. Also, we have to learn to train ourselves so that when the war comes, we are able to stand against it. We're able to survive it. And this comes with detachment. Things like fasting, things like tithing, things that I detach myself of my material things. I detach myself from the things that my body wants to say that I am fighting against the devil and I'm drawing closer to God. All these things actually that we have in our life are not things that we really need. These are not really things that we need. God never intended for us to be so attached to these things. He intended for us to be only attached to Him, and whatever things that our bodies needed or our spirits needed or our souls needed would be provided by Him directly. So we were attached only to God. We were not attached to the things that He created. And whether He chose to give it in one form or give it in another form, we cared only about Him. This is the way Adam and Eve were. They were in the Garden of Eden attached to God, and everything that they had came through God. Attachment to things comes when we begin to become attached to the creation itself, to the things that God has created and not the Creator. Also, we need to be aware of the small demons, the small things that it's very easy for us to fall into them because we're not really standing watch, we're not really on guard, and those things very gradually over time can destroy us. Also, we have to ask God for help in everything. We are not strong enough. We ask God for help, we bring Him into the war, and He's able to help us. And then finally, we continue to resist with faith to the last breath, and we never lose hope, regardless of the number of times that we fall. We get up again, and God will bless us and grant us victory. So may God give us this understanding of that we are in this spiritual fight, and grant us victory over the enemy, so that we can stand before God and be with Him for eternity. And glory be to God forever. Amen.